Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's webinar. It's wonderful to see so many people that we have to have two screens. This is great. So I just want to tell you, sorry, my name's Laura, for those of you who haven't met me. I'll take care of the technical side of things tonight. So if you have any technical issues at any point, you can message me in the chat. You can find the icon for the chat in the bottom of your screen, and I'll do my best to help. Yeah, and I'll just tell you a few other technical things for tonight. So we will be recording the webinar, and we share it on our webpage for everybody to see. So if you don't wish to be recorded, you can turn your video off and remain anonymous that way. I'd also ask you to remain muted unless you're asking a question, and then we don't get a lot of noise and things. Cynthia will make a presentation, and then she'll open it up for questions and answers if you can. And I'll keep an eye out for you. And then there'll be a queuing system, so you can come on. If for some reason that I don't see you waving, you can just, after the last person has finished, you can just unmute yourself and kind of jump in. But I will keep an eye out for you. Okay. So I'd just like to introduce Cynthia. Cynthia is the co-founder of the Awaken Life Project. Co-founder with her husband, Peter. The Awaken Life Project is based in Portugal, but has members all over the world. The project is dedicated to helping people live an awakened life as free human beings. And Cynthia runs courses and retreats throughout the year in Portugal and abroad. And with that, I'll hand over to you, Cynthia.
Hello, everybody. Kind of makes me nervous when we have more than one screen because I can't see everybody. But I guess I'll just have to live with the insecurity, which is fine. Okay, why don't we just do a short meditation to get started. So if everybody will just sit up straight. Put your feet flat on the floor unless you're sitting cross-legged. And close your eyes. And just take a deep breath in through your nose, all the way down into your belly. And as you exhale, just relax any tension, any stress you might be feeling. So again, a deep breath in. And exhale and relax. Just do that a few times at your own speed. But be very conscious of the sensation of the air entering the body and exiting the body. And also be aware as the breath enters the body, how the body is enlivened. And your cells start to wake up because you're consciously breathing. And you're breathing deeply. So allow yourself just to enjoy consciously being aware of your body breathing. So you can continue breathing deeply as long as you'd like, or you can start relaxing a bit and letting the breath become more natural. but natural sometimes means shallow, because that's what we're used to. So just for a minute or two, keep your attention on the body breathing and the breath entering. If you find your mind very, very busy, and you feel like all your attention is in your head, then very, very gently bring your attention to the breath. And if you find your attention popping back up into your head, then gently, with no judgment and no frustration, just gently bring your attention back to the breath. So you may have to do this over and over again. So be patient, be kind, and be committed. If you feel any kind of agitation, it's not a problem. Just continue to put your attention onto the breath. Doesn't mean you avoid the agitation. It means that you're putting your attention somewhere else. And maybe you'll notice that the agitation will fall into the background. You can't have your attention on your breath and your attention in your head or on any kind of agitation at the same time. But you might have to be diligent to continue to bring your attention to the breath. So if you're conscious of yourself breathing, and you might notice as you're conscious of breathing, you find yourself more relaxed, less contracted. And if you find yourself struggling, maybe you're new to meditation. And the habit for most people is to have their attention inward on either what they're thinking or what they're feeling. And it's a very, very strong habit. So you don't have to change what you're thinking or change what you're feeling. Because if you're thinking something and you're feeling something, that's happening. But normally we contract around what we think and how we feel. And we become more and more tense. We may have a thought that says, I'm doing it wrong. I'm not meditating. Everybody else is doing it better than me. So very, very gently again, just bring your attention back to the breath and become more fascinated with your body breathing and the air coming into your system and the life that it's giving. Allow yourself to be more interested in that than the addiction to thought and feeling. And don't feel bad if you have to do this over and over and over again, shifting your attention from thought and feeling to the breath. Just do what you need to do. With no judgment, no problem. So notice as this process is going on. Maybe for some of you, you're relaxing very deeply. Maybe for some of you, you're having to make some effort to bring the attention back to the breath. But it doesn't matter if you're a person making effort or making no effort. Be aware that you are aware of effort being made, no effort being made. If there's thought or feeling, recognize that you are aware of thought, feeling, effort, or no effort. And relax into yourself as that which is aware. It's very, very simple. If you're aware of a thought, you are not the thought. A thought is arising in your view, in your awareness. If you are feeling any kind of sensation, whether it be a happy feeling or a tense feeling, be aware that you are aware of that feeling, of that sensation. So you are prior to the thought or the feeling. You are that which is aware of all the objects arising in your consciousness, in your awareness, right now. So it really doesn't matter if you have a quiet mind or a busy mind. If your attention is resting as awareness itself, you are not identified with the thought or the feeling. And if you are not identified with a thought or a feeling, it becomes completely unimportant. So very, very simply, if you find yourself fixated on an object that you are aware of, whether it be thought, feeling, sensation, a bird singing, it doesn't matter what it is. Very, very simply, recognize that you are aware of that object and you are not the object. This is very important. We have to break the hypnotic spell that most people are under, believing that they are what they think and they are what they feel. You are not what you think and you are not what you feel. Primarily and first and utmost, you are that which is aware of all of the content that you are perceiving through smell, touch, sensation, thought, everything. To relax as awareness. And if you're new to meditation, just bring yourself back to the breath and enjoy your body being breathed. So just for the last couple minutes of the meditation, just either allow yourself to relax into that which is aware as yourself, or just breathe. And enjoy the whole process. And allow yourself to fully feel the deep relaxation of the body being breathed. Feel it, experience it, enjoy it. Or enjoy the deep relaxation of relaxing into awareness itself as yourself. Okay, and take a deep breath in and exhale and relax. And when you're ready, just open your eyes. Okay. Welcome everybody to the webinar tonight. I see lots of familiar faces and I see lots of new faces. So this is very nice and very good. The title of the webinar is How to Making It Real. And the last month I did a webinar about how much am I responding to life. And so I think a lot of people were on that webinar, and maybe some people were have watched the video or listened to the audio. But really, these two things are very much connected. But first, we have to set a context of what we're talking about when I say make it real. Because if we don't have a particular context, we could be talking about two different things. And I could be saying something and you're thinking about it from a different context. So everything that I usually talk about is from a spiritual context. So I want to explain very briefly what that is. Okay, so a spiritual context is the context of understanding that there is only one consciousness in this world. And that consciousness is animating everything. It's the life force that you feel in your body. It's the life force that the trees, the green of the trees, the flowers blooming, the dog barking, anything, the birds singing. Everything is being animated by this one consciousness. So what that means is that that one consciousness is the same in all of us. Okay, so we all look very different. We can look on the screen and we can see that there's no two people that look exactly alike. But what is shining through each one of our eyes is that same one consciousness. The same thing is animating all of these different manifestations of that one consciousness. So sometimes in spiritual life, people talk about the one and the many. Okay, so there's one consciousness, just very simply, there's one consciousness that's animating all of us, but there's the many expressions of that one consciousness. So ego is something that is a denial of the truth of one consciousness and the truth of unity and the truth that we are always already together. Okay? So our definition of ego is the insistence that separation is real and limitation is real. So it's an illusion. It's insisting that the illusion of separation is real. So with what I just said about one consciousness coming through all our eyes and animating all of us, there's really only one thing going on here. But if we impose the idea that I'm a separated, isolated individual with special problems, special situations, that I'm separate from you, and you could not understand my experience. So I'm imposing an idea onto life. So we are all individuals, but we are all arising from that same one consciousness. So we're not trying to take anybody's individuality away. But so often people think that there's so much talk about being a unique individual. And usually what that means is I want to be a special ego. Instead of I am a unique individual when I'm actually letting consciousness animate this vehicle more and more and more. So you can look at it kind of as who we actually are as prior to any kind of egoic activity that's happening in this world. Okay? And so what we end up doing is we have a mask. It's a persona. And we have a mask on our face. So here we are. We already are free. We're already prior to anything that's ever happened. But we walk around with a mask in front of our face. And we're insisting that I am isolated, separate, and alone. So if you think about a free flow of energy, a free flow of energy means nothing is blocking it. There's a flow of energy that can happen. And when that flow is happening, it's a miracle. But if we're insisting that we're separate, we are basically blocking that flow. And when we block that flow, everything changes. Everything changes. Why? Because all of a sudden, when I insist that I'm separate, when I insist that I'm blocking this flow, I have an idea about myself, I have an idea about you, I have a self-image I have to protect. All of a sudden, we become subject and object. We become you and me and other. And then we spend our whole lives craving this unity that we intuit is true. There's something in our heart that's calling us for something higher, something more than this egoic kind of culturally created existence. Isn't that true? There's something in us that says, no, I want something different. I know there's something more. I don't know what it is. And so it's what's brought most of us, I would say all of us, onto the spiritual path and onto this webinar. You wouldn't be on this webinar if you were completely satisfied with what you already have, what you already think, with the relationships you already have. You wouldn't be on this webinar because there would be no need. You'd be completely satisfied. So somewhere, everybody's a bit dissatisfied. Is that true? Come on, be honest. Okay. So the thing that's so great about that is because this dissatisfaction and this drive for something new is the deepest dimension of ourself. It's prior to all of the ideas we have about being separate, having to seek something that's outside of ourselves. Those are all ideas. But there's an intuition inside of us that's all the same in all of us. Maybe some of that is burning brighter than others, but as long as there's a little flame that you're aware of and you give yourself to that flame, then that is pushing us forward to say, no, there's more. I know there's more. I know there's more. I don't know what it is. Okay, and that's the awakening. That's when you start waking up to something beyond our egoic existence. And it's not easy. Sometimes it happens spontaneously. And sometimes, most of the time it'll happen spontaneously. We'll have some kind of experience or some kind of intuition, and we start giving ourselves to that. And we think, what was that? And then we find ourselves on what we call a spiritual path. But it really is a path to awakening. But somewhere along the path, if you start to have, if you give yourself to that path, or even from the initial experience that's waking you up to something else, you'll get connected. You'll start to recognize what I am intuiting feels more like home, feels more like me than all these ideas I have about myself. Okay, and all these ideas I have about everybody else. And all the fear that I have, all the insecurity that I carry, all the seeking for something else. You recognize, oh my God, it's right there. I can feel it. I can feel it. But you're still insisting that it's not you. And so the search continues. The seeking continues. Okay? So making it real in this context basically means that if you have an intuition that there's something more than what your life is about right now, you intuit that there's more beauty, there's more love, there's more potential, there's more something. If you intuit that, making it real means you give yourself to that longing. It's really that simple. You give yourself to that longing, that waking up process. Now, of course, when you start giving yourself to something that you can't like put your finger on, or you recognize it as being more you, but it's in a mysterious kind of way. You can't get your head around it. So most of us really identify with who I am is the age that I am, the gender that I am, the country that I'm from, and usually the parents that I've had. Okay, that's usually what our identity is. And then we spend our whole life trying to break out of that identity or to fix the problems that we perceive come along with that identity. You know, so if you find yourself being a bit unstable, then it's like, oh, I'm an unstable person, so I have to do something to make myself stable. Or I'm always sad. I need to make myself do something so I'm not always sad. We're constantly trying to change our experience. Okay, so in this context, what I'm trying to say to you is you can have all sorts of stuff arising from conditioned behavior. You can have sadness, you can have grief, you can have doubt, you can have fear, you can have whatever, it doesn't matter. You can have all sorts of human experiences that come from a conditioned human response. And also, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's all bad, but any kind of human experience that we're having is just the human experience we're having. But where we run into trouble is we make that experience into an identity. So if I'm experiencing fear a lot of the time, then if I attach to that and make it into an identity, I'm a person who's afraid. So as soon as I have an identity, then I have to do something to get over that identity. So what we end up doing is we have all sorts of identities. And we have different identities for different relationships in our life. We have different identities going on in our head. A lot of people will have contradictory identities. You might have an identity of I'm a good person, and underneath there's a belief that I'm not a good person. So there's a lot of conflict going on in human beings. Just trying to figure out, well, who in the heck am I? But if you go back to this intuition that's pushing you forward, you see, that is who you are. That is who we all are. But as long as you're looking outside yourself to fix the identities that you might have, you are never going to rest in that which is prior to all of it. Is this making sense to everyone? Okay, so everybody's like, how do I make it real? You know, I go to a retreat, I have a fantastic experience. You know, I see, oh my God, the doors of perception open, and I understand that who I thought I was is not who I am. I'm something else. I'm somebody else, but I don't even know what that is. And then you go about trying to live it, right? Which is not a bad thing. That's a very fantastic endeavor to do, and we're all on that process of doing it. So I'm not saying that something is good or bad. I'm just saying that we want to look at it and we want to consciously make decisions on where we're coming from and what we're doing. So the spiritual context is basically the context that who I am is prior to anything that's ever happened in time, and it's prior to any thought or feeling. or any identity. Okay? So that's why when you're meditating, if your mind is going a bit busy or a bit crazy and you're thinking about all your problems or whatever, and you just relax into it, you recognize, oh my God, I'm aware of the movement of mind. So if you're aware of the movement of mind, you don't have to fix the movement of mind, it's just a movement of mind. But what you need to do is you need to shift your identification from I am the movement of mind to I am that which is aware of that movement. And everybody can do that. But the problem is we're so fixed and attached to the movement of mind or the sensation of feeling as being who we are. It takes commitment and it takes effort sometimes to go, oh my God, that's not me. I am that which is aware. So if you want to make what you make it real, the it that's real is living the truth of unity. And I'll tell you, we're not going to be able to cover all this in one webinar for sure, because this is a work in progress. But the context from where you make your decisions always needs to be coming from that context of prior freedom. So if who you are is that which is aware, if you recognize that as being yourself, you'll recognize that there's no time in that picture. If you think about who you are, as a person with a certain age, you'll see you'll have lots of ideas coming in about I'm a person, I'm Cynthia, I'm 60, I'm American, I'm a woman, I'm this, I'm that, right? It goes on and on. But if you shift your awareness back, you see all of that becomes secondary. You don't deny that that's all the case, because it is true. But what's first and foremost is who you are prior to any of that that's ever happened in time. And that will give you a deep sense of relaxation. But it also gives you space between mechanically fighting with your self-images, fighting with other people's self-images, fighting with all the ideas you have that are arising in your head. It will give you space to start recognize, I am not that. I am that which is aware. And that little bit of space means a lot, because you can start making different choices. You don't have to mechanically react to thought and feeling. Okay? Everybody's mechanically reacting to thought and feeling. And where ego actually starts to exist in every moment is when a thought arises, we personalize that thought. And as soon as we personalize a thought that we think it means something about me, we've created a separate I that now has something to protect, something to do, something to get over, something to build on. And we're moving away. We're living in the future, hoping someday that we'll be able to transcend all this, and then someday we'll be free. Instead of, the spiritual context is relaxing into that which is aware, that is already fully free and already deeply relaxed. So the spiritual life is really understanding who I am prior to all of this, but making the effort to not continue to personalize our human experience. Because the personalization of thought and feeling creates the separate I that basically is causing all your suffering and the suffering of the world. If we didn't believe we were separate, we would never be able to do the things that we do to each other, to animals, to the planet, to anything else. You see, if that separation disappears, we're still going to be making choices. We're still going to be living human beings. But we're not going to be separate. We're not going to be insisting that I'm separate from you. And then we can find out, because we'll be celebrating each other's differences instead of competing with each other, comparing with each other. you ever thought of how much you compare yourself to everybody else, and you get to find yourself, you get to figure out, oh, I'm worse or I'm better. It's an ongoing, like, exhausting experience. So I hope this is making sense. I'm making it very simple how to make it real. And I know maybe some people getting on this webinar were hoping that I can give you very, very concrete, you should do this, you should do that. And I actually am, but I'm giving you something very challenging to do. Because if I just, it's like going on a diet. If somebody tells you what to eat, you can just do it, right? And you just do it and you do it and you do it. But you don't learn anything and you don't transcend anything. You just become a slave to whatever diet they just gave you. So this isn't about me giving you, a strategy. Because everybody needs to do the work. And the work is to rest as that which is aware. Recognize that you are that which is prior to any of your conditioning. Recognize you are not your thoughts and your feelings. And all of this may sound very difficult, but it's not if you just stop. And you take a breath and you go, oh my God, I'm thinking right now, but I'm aware that I'm thinking. Oh my God, I feel a contraction. This person's making me really angry. And instead of just reacting to that anger or trying to get rid of it, you go, oh my God, I'm aware of anger arising right now. I'm aware of it. And you don't have to go into therapy about this. You just recognize that it's there. And you recognize who you are. And I'm not being negative about therapy, because sometimes it's very helpful. But from the spiritual context, if you're continually trying to fix yourself, you're already moving away from who you already always have been and are right now. And sometimes therapy is helpful, but if you stay in the therapeutic context, you're just moving the furniture around in the house. And what the spiritual context is to blow up the house. Okay? So we can get very fascinated with our moving the furniture process, and sometimes that's part of the awakening process, so that's okay. But eventually you get to the point, and there's a lot of people on this call who are at that point where you need to let go of the seeking to do something, because that's the opposite. Seeking to change your experience is the opposite of making it real. Because seeking to satisfy the separate I, which is an illusion in the first place, is not real. Seeking something that is not real, you can use your mind and realize if I'm seeking for something that's not real, that's not very real. That makes sense, right? This is what blows my mind. I love doing this. I love talking about this, and I love speaking to people about it, because it's so incredibly obvious when you start just looking at what we do and asking certain simple questions, like, what is a thought? See, that's a very interesting question, right? I think I talked about this on the last webinar. So what is a thought? Can anybody give me an answer? You can tell me, you can talk about thoughts. You can say what they do to you. You can say you think that they're in your head. But what is it? You don't know, right? What is a thought? You look at your hand and you go, what is this? And you can go, oh, it's a hand. It's got 5 fingers. And you can tell me all about it. But when you look at it, you go, well, what actually is it? You see, you don't actually know. And this is happening a lot in science right now. You can get back to all these theories and theories and theories. Even the Big Bang Theory you can look at. And you can say, okay, from nothing came something. But what was the nothing it came out of? What is that? What is that nothing? You see, so it becomes a very interesting and lively engagement. So, making it real. So I'll give you one example of making it real that happened to me this morning. Okay, so I was on first of all, I stayed up way too late last night. So then I had to get up early, and I had a call that was about 2-hour long call with about 10 women. And And it was a really good call. And at the end of the call, somebody said something, and I realized, oh God, this is going to be a big mess. It's something we're going to have to deal with. And so I had this like rush of problem enter into my head. I'm also here in California with my 96-year-old mother, and she lives in an assisted living place. And so I'm staying with her there. So I'm surrounded by people who are like 90, 95, 99, but I'm actually living here. I'm not just kind of coming and going, you know? So it's a very different experience. So here I am. I get off this call this morning, and I'm in the apartment with my 96-year-old mother, and she's very sweet. And, but, you know, so here I've got 2 hours to kind of think about this webinar, and she comes up and she's like, you know, my library books are overdue, and I need to figure out how to renew them online, but I don't know where and she gets very confused on what to do. So, you know, my first thought is, Mom, I've got more important things to do than your library books, right? But then that's not being real, because what's being real is Mom is asking me about her library books, and there's a human being in front of me. So I just recognized, okay, and I just sat down and I took care of her library books. It was no problem, you know, but everything, and I was thinking about the webinar. I go, okay, well, time to make it real right now, because everything in me wants to just go, Mom, could you just give it a rest? I got things to do. You know, and then even it was just funny, because ever since then, when we were doing the guided meditation, I don't know if you heard, but she was checking her answering machine, and it was super loud. So in the middle of the meditation, I had to turn off the camera, my camera. I had to mute. I had to go out and tell her, Mom, I'm doing a guided meditation. Can you please be quiet? And you know, and then I just came back. But you know, so it's like, if I wanted to, I could make that into a big problem and make myself into a really important person. I'm the one who's doing the webinar. Mom, your library books don't matter. You don't matter. You know, you're making noise and you're bothering me, you know? But instead, you just got to stretch and rise to the occasion. So making it real basically means to be present with the situation, right? And respond. And so I did go out and I go, Mom, you got to be quiet. You know, I didn't just go, oh, Mom, keep listening to your answering machine, because she already knew she was supposed to be quiet. She just forgot. But anyway, I just wanted to tell you that little story, because, you know, we have lots of opportunities in our lives to be real and to not make ourselves the most important person on the planet, and not to make ourselves the giving nurturer. You know, because anytime we make ourselves somebody, we still get to be the most important person on the planet, whether we're helping your mother, or, you know, or saving the planet, or doing whatever. As long as there's an identity involved, we're not free and we're not available to respond. We just aren't. So this is something that we all need to come together, and we need to talk about it. We need to work at it, because it's not something that just is going to happen. It could. We always have to leave space for that possibility. But really, we have to be very, very interested in you know, in what we're doing and how conscious we are, and how we're relating to other people, how we're relating to our own minds, how we're relating to our children, how we're relating to our parents, and everybody else in between. Okay, so I think that's enough. I went on a little bit longer than I thought, but so be it. So if you guys have any questions, just jump in. I think Laura already told you about the hand raising thing. But yeah, let's really get in here and talk about this, because how do you make it real in your life? You know, basically it means live what you understand. That's what it means. So if you're afraid, you've got an inspiration to do something and fear arises, and you understand that fear is just something that's arising in your awareness, then you need to do what you need to do and not let fear stop you. And this is what a lot of the last webinar is about. So everybody, if you haven't seen the last webinar, I have to say it was pretty good. You might want to check it out after this. Okay?
Carol, is that you raising your hand? Can't find her.
No, here I am.
Yeah.
No, I was just having a drink. I was making it real.
You want to jump in?
You're making it real because you were thirsty, huh?
You got it there.
Doesn't everybody struggle with this question? Because we all want to be real and authentic, don't we? And then don't you find yourself sometimes not being very real and not being very authentic? You see, so nobody has to be ashamed of this habit because everybody's doing it. We're so fascinated with our own stories. It's like unbelievable. Manon.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Cynthia. I think I just want to make a short sharing because since the retreat, coming back from Portugal, just for everybody to know that it was also the topic, the theme of the last retreat. And I am struck, listening to you again, how it makes such a difference, to keep being present. This was my experience at the retreat, keep bringing back my attention to right now, to this moment, and also like the exercise you gave us to put my attention out. So it's just so simple, and this is something that is present and that I keep anchoring into, all the time. When I see I lose myself in my mind, or I'm just not present, just like you just shared, being with someone and suddenly just realize that, oh, I'm suddenly inside, I'm more concerned about what I think and how I feel. Then I just stop and bring back my attention to where I am. And I keep practicing and things happen. And this is just so beautiful. And so it's a simple practice. I just want to say that to everybody, just start practicing. And yeah.
Yeah, and you can do it anytime. It's not like you can do it while you're driving. You can do it anytime. You just you shift your attention outward. Okay, so you take your attention off your head, which is usually what most people feel like they're trapped in, which is another idea, because how can you be trapped in your head? But that's an assumption that we have. But you just shift your attention out. And if you shift your attention out, you cannot have your attention on your narcissistic relationship to your egoic patterns and outward at the same time. You can't do it. Just try to do it right now. Can you keep your attention in your head and shift your attention out at the same time? Okay, once you get to a certain point in your own spiritual process, and someone who's resting very deeply as themselves, there will be no difference between inner and outer. So I'm not saying this is the end of the road, but I'm saying that for right now, if you find yourself contracting inward, put your attention out and be with what is. That doesn't mean that if you're having a particular emotion, because some people say, well, what about how I feel? Because how I feel guides, my awakening or something. You will awake if you take your attention off of your internal experience. You will feel still. You will be able to recognize. You'll be more able to recognize what's going on and what you need to understand, what you need to see. But if you're trying to figure it out with your head and by going in, you're being tricked. You're just being tricked because you're still in the process of thinking there's something wrong with you that you have to get over. Okay, you put your attention outward, and what we say here in the project is faith, trust, and surrender, because you're letting go of your story, you're putting your attention out, and then you're present with everyone. So as we're sitting here on the screen right now, everybody is, can you feel it? Maybe you can even feel that you're putting your attention out and you're really with it. And then I might say something that pushes a button, and then the attention goes inward on what you think or what you feel about it. But in a contracting way, not just in a curiosity questioning way. Okay, and then you recognize, oh my God, I'm cut off from what's going on. Okay, I put my attention out again. Has anybody noticed this throughout the call? Yeah? I just want to make sure you guys are with me because this is very, very simple. So right now, put your attention on the screen. Just look at all the people. Okay? You just look in, you're going, there's Jim and Manon, Candida, Natasha, Monica, Jane, Claire. Okay, now, so you kind of just look at everybody and be curious, right? Well, I wonder who that person is. They're cool. Haven't seen Jane in a while. Nice to see her again. You know. And then now put your attention inward and everybody think about their problems. Okay, now, do you notice when you put your attention inward, your view becomes very, very small and contracted? When you put your attention out, everything expands. This is just a very basic kind of exercise I'm giving. So I'm oversimplifying it to some degree, but it's actually quite simple in the end. Okay, when you put your attention out, do you feel expanded? When you put your attention in, do you feel contracted? That's what you want to find out for yourself. So you guys need to talk to me so I know where you're at, because, you know, when I do these webinars, it's not just about me talking. I want to make sure that we're all moving together, or something is actually landing. Because if this is one thing with these webinars, and it's the way that I teach, everything I want to be implicating. I don't want this to be like an intellectual exercise where you walk away and you have more knowledge and nothing changes. I want to poke things that make you think. And even to the point if you get a little upset with me, that's fine. Okay, or even if you think I don't know what I'm talking about, that's okay too. But if something's being poked, you want to be interested in that moment of like, oh, there's a contraction, I've been poked. Or, wow, there's an expansion because something else has been poked and you're leaning in. So it's not about what I'm saying, it's about what your experience is. And then be interested in that experience. But the only way you can actually be interested is not to contract around it, but to open up to it. And that's what I'm talking about, is putting the attention out. Okay, it's not denying that you're having an experience. But if you're trying to figure out your experience, you're trying to fix your experience, you're trying to do anything with your experience, you're moving away from that which is actually going to awaken you. Because when you become aware of the contraction, you are becoming aware of an egoic movement of isolation and separation. You see, and then you just see it in real time. That's the thing that's so important. When you see it in real time, then you like go, oh my God, look at that. That's not this contraction who I thought was always me. I'm just the angry person that's always like frustrated and trying to act nice. All of a sudden you see it as a movement and not as a personality or character flaw. You see, it's so important to depersonalize this. Because I think if we went through the whole list, you know, how many people have ever doubted? Yes, everybody raises their hand. How many people have ever been angry in a wrong way? Okay, how many people have ever felt shame because they've been angry in a wrong way? Okay, so everybody's had doubt, everybody's had shame, everybody's had anger. Okay, but what we do is we become so fixated on fixing our doubt, shame, and our anger. What we turn away from is the joy of who we already are. You see, so if you're constantly trying to fix, and actually the society we live in now, it celebrates fixing ourselves. It's a responsible thing to do, to fix ourselves. Now, I'm not saying that we all don't have habits that we need, things we need to change, but we don't need to change who we already are. We just need to make different decisions when situations come up. That's all. Nobody has a solid structure here called, egoic problem me. If you take the deep spiritual truth of impermanence, okay, everything is arising and falling away in every moment. Everything is dying as we sit here right now. Everything is changing. Everything, everything, everything. So that means if everything is changing, that a habit that I might have in this second is not a solid structure. It's just a habit that's happening in every second that I choose to personalize with that. I personalize that habit. That's all it is. There is no solid structure that anybody needs to get over. We just need to stop personalizing thought and feeling and putting our attention on the big yes that's in our heart instead of on the big no that's in our head. That's really what it comes down to. And everybody can choose. It's kind of just like going, I'm going to look over here. My habit is to look over there. And it takes a lot of energy to push my head over here. But if that's what I got to do, that's what I do. And then pretty soon, this becomes the habit. Now, when I'm using this or that, it doesn't mean you're avoiding anything or denying anything. Okay, so I just want to be clear about that. We're not trying to deny the human experience. We're just trying to have a perspective and a context in which we look at the human experience. That's very different than denying it. And what we're doing when we get fixated on our special problems and everything we think we need to fix in order to be a free human being, what we're doing is we're denying our true selves. So everybody's really worried about denying their egoic individual habits. I'm not saying we're not all individuals, but everybody's worried about, well, what if I give up myself? But you're giving up yourself by worrying about this conditioned habit. Because who you are is not that. So, am I freaking people out? Paul?
There's Lotta waving too.
Okay,
Yeah.
Lotta, you're next then.
Good. Yeah, when when you asked us to put the attention out in that process, I feel like very thrilled. I feel like I want to relate all these people on the screen, all these faces on the screen. I feel a strong pull to relate, but not from my habitual way of relating with my personal history, which would actually just kill any relationship that but yeah, I don't know what it's something much more happy essence in the relation, in the relating when I'm putting my attention out. That's just what I wanted to say.
Yeah, and the way you can understand that, Paul, is when you're putting your attention out, you're actually connecting to what's already there. So the truth is we're already in relationship. Because if there's only one consciousness and there's not a division, we're always in relationship. We just don't know it. because we turn away from it. But when you make the effort, like you said, you put your attention out, then you recognize I'm already in relationship with all these people. There's nothing I need to do. And if I impose trying to be in relationship with them, you know, which means you're denying that it's already the case, and you're going to try to impose something on that's already true, then the likelihood is it will get messed up because you are actually trying to be somebody in that picture. You know, so relationship, we're already, you know, if you think about it right now, we're already in relationship. How could we not be in relationship? It's only our imposition of separation that tries to, you know, that we convince ourselves that we're not in relationship. And then what happens? We have a project on our hands again because I'm not in relationship. I need to relate to these people. What we need to do is we need to stop. We do need to do something different. We need to stop denying that we're already in a relationship. We need to put our attention outward and then be willing to respond. You'll be more able to respond if you're not putting up a block between you and the other person. Don't you think if there's only one thing going on, there's a free flow? As soon as you actually impose separation, there's no flow. It's like reactions. So I hope that's clear, because you're not trying to create relationship. You're already in relationship. You're just wanting to shift your attention so you're not denying what's already there. Okay, Lata.
Was actually Mom Lotte.
Oh, hi. Hi, Birgit.
Hi, Cynthia. Well, let me first say that I didn't really plan to be here, but my daughter asked me. At first I thought, no, they are from another spiritual movement. I'm doing my own thing. And but it's not for nothing that I'm here, and it kind of touches what I hear. And to say, well, there is no different spiritual movement, because actually we're all in the, you know, we're all trying to free ourselves, I think. And but I want to talk about the experience I had last night. I had a night for myself, and I found myself really, really tired. And I thought, why am I so tired? And I was already on some project again, and I always find myself working on the next project and doing the next good thing, and trying to realize something else. And with that, always running, and actually exhausting myself. And I'm already in this pattern for a long, long time. And yesterday evening, I really realized, my God, what am I doing all the time? I don't even have time for my grandchild because I'm running to realize something. Mm-hmm. And I was so tired and so actually sick of it, not of myself, but of the way I'm always. And I thought, I already proved that I'm very courageous, that I can realize things, that I can this, that. But, you know, what's the point of always trying to do the next thing? And I just want to be. And then today I practice it, and I was with my grandchild for a couple of hours, and I enjoyed myself so much playing dragon and whatever, and with her, and really looking at that little face and just being happy with the time without thinking of some great thing I have to realize. And so it's not for nothing I'm here at this moment in this webinar, because I think it relates a little bit to the experience I had last night, and trying to already practice it today. And I was so much happier actually today. So, maybe, I don't know if it makes sense, but
no, it makes perfect sense, and it's a really good example of what I'm saying, because, you know, if you are already who you are, and what you're describing of running, keeping busy, even if you're doing good stuff, if the motivation to do it is a movement away from just stopping and being present, Okay? It doesn't mean you can't do stuff if you're present, but if you're constantly running away, you are going to be exhausted because you're trying to insist that you're not already okay. So if you think of it this way, if ego is an illusion, and this whole idea of persona and separation and self images, you know, we're trying to prove all the time that I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. If you're constantly trying to prove that, then you're constantly running away from what's already true, and that is exhausting. And this is the world we live in now, because not only are we egoically, you know, we're running toward our egoic habits, but our egoic habits are celebrated in the society we live in now to quite a degree. And so we're actually being conditioned and trained to constantly get busier and busier, more productive, more something, and constantly seeking outside of ourselves through, you know, food, sex, you know, drugs, it doesn't matter, activities, adrenaline, you know, whatever, it doesn't matter. But it's exhausting because it's not true. You're trying to hold back the truth always. So yeah, and then when you just stop and you just be, then all of a sudden you're not exhausted, right?
Right.
But if you do this for a long enough period of time, you'll find that you're kind of running your batteries down, and you'll just go into, you know, maybe a collapse at different times. And a lot of people go through that, because if you continue to run and deny what you already know to be true in yourself, if you do that, your body, you know, it's like, I can put it this way, God will just knock you on the head and just keep saying, I'm trying to tell you to slow down, I'm trying to tell you to slow down, and you won't do it, so I'm going to just knock you down at the knees for a while. You know, and I don't want to get any, I'm just using that as an example, not to make anybody paranoid that there's a boogeyman out there that's trying to knock you down to your knees. But it's really true. We exhaust ourselves because we're running away from the truth. And that's the whole movement of seeking that we have to transcend. And it's a very subtle thing that we do. It's just the idea of I'm not okay is a movement of seeking. That's the root of it.
Right.
And we're conditioned to think we're not okay, both men and women in different ways. So we really are trying to get off this wheel of insistence that I'm not okay.
Yeah, and also I think all the time creating ideas in my head, what plans I make, I find myself also not being open for what is, and maybe some guidance from some spiritual guidance, because I'm the one who's making the plans. Actually, I'm trying to play God in that way.
Yeah, but look at it this way, because are you creating the thoughts?
Sometimes.
Well, how do you create a thought? Tell me how you do it, because I don't really understand how you actually do that. Do you like put a couple things together and then thoughts arise? Or
yeah, something like that.
So you are actually the creator of your thoughts. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Yes.
Okay, I would look into that a little bit. So are you the creator of all your thoughts or just certain thoughts?
No, not all my thoughts, but I'm a really good plan maker.
Yeah, but what I want to say to you, Birgit, is that it's not that you're creating the thoughts. Thought is just arising, okay? But then you're personalizing certain thoughts and you're making them important to you.
Right.
Okay, and then what happens when you make a certain thought important to you, you start to create an identity around these thoughts. Okay, and then that's where the proving starts coming in. Right. But really, I just want to encourage you, because you really said it to yourself, but I want to highlight it. It's like you just have to stop running. And, you know, that can be terrifying for lots of people, everybody almost, because when you stop running, you see what you're letting go of is who you think you already, you know, who you are. So the biggest spiritual question there is, and Ramana Maharshi used this as a practice, is just, who am I? So the first question is, who am I and how shall I live? But you have to ask the, sorry, I have to sneeze just a sec. Okay, sorry, it's gone. But you see, that's what you're up against. So you don't have to worry about the individual thoughts. Just recognize that you personalize certain ones. You create an identity from that personalization, and then you're spending time proving. And all of that is in service to the ego, but also it's driving you crazy, right? Doesn't it bother you?
Sometimes, yes.
Okay, so where we are right now, it seems to be, as human beings, is we have to suffer quite a lot before we get to the point where we're willing to do something different. And how much any individual needs to suffer is kind of up for speculation, because you never know how much you have to suffer. Some people have a bigger capacity to suffer than others before they change. So if you're getting to the point where you're just sick of it, and it sounds like you are, and now you've actually seen doing something different will make you happy, then your practice is to stop. Because you know it in yourself. Otherwise, you're not making it real. You're playing a game. You want to make it real, so do what you did today with Isa. Just play with her. Be present with your family. Be present with everything. But don't feel like you don't be the one who has to be the doer all the time. And I know you a little bit, and you do really good stuff. But and I know you're interested in spiritual stuff because you've been involved with it for a long time. But you're at the point you just need to stop, because there's happiness there's happiness in stopping. You just won't hold yourself to it. So that's the practice for everybody. So you're not alone on that one.
I know.
And I'm sure Flores and Lata will help you out.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, who else we got? Is that you, Jim?
Yeah,
Hi,
I kind of have my hands up. Hi, Cynthia. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm just sitting here and I'm looking at, I think for me, what I'm experiencing is one of the things that I know about myself is this sense to contract in the face of fear. And I'm not even sure that I really know what I'm afraid of or what fear is, but it seems more of just like a feeling of not being enough or not being good enough or needing to hide or whatever that is. And it has a tendency to want to be invisible. And, and I've done a certain amount of work on embracing fear and embracing terror, and it doesn't seem to go away. There's this, I think it's a belief for me that somehow my fear should go away.
Exactly.
That I've done it enough and it shouldn't be here. And if it's here, there's something wrong and I better stop. So, and I like something that I heard said is that you really can't let go of fear. All you can do is have courage. And I resonate with that. It's like, okay, fear is there, have courage. And again, for me, it's not about contracting. It's about looking and seeing what's appropriate, even in the face of what I might think I'm afraid about. And inevitably, when that happens, it dissipates or it disappears, or sometimes it may increase. I don't know, but most of the time it seems to go away. But if I look at this example, particularly, there's a group of people that I don't really know. I don't know well, and there's some trepidation about crossing over some level of intimacy or even admitting that there's fear or whatever that movement is. And as soon as I acknowledge and embrace that, it's like the things take on a realm of relaxation around it. Things become, it's easier just to stay present, I think, to it, if that makes sense. Anyway.
Well, it makes sense, but I've heard you speak about this fear before, and you have to recognize what fear is. You might have heard this, but it's basically false evidence appearing real.
I like that.
Okay, so it's not a case of you need courage. You don't need anything. Okay, so if fear is arising, why do you want it to go away? What's wrong with it?
Well, I think it's really simply as a matter as I just don't like it. I think it really comes
Right.
down to it.
But why don't you like it?
It must mean something about me, and I'm not sure what that is.
No, but just look at it very simply, like, why don't you like it? Is it too intense? Why don't you like it?
It does get, yeah, it does get intense. And yeah, it's like I don't like the intensity of it, and I want to step away from the intensity of it. That's what it feels like.
Okay. And then, so why don't you like intensity? If it was intensity, like, I don't know if you have a fantastic sport or something that you like. I've been watching the NBA playoffs with my mom, and so there's all this intensity, right? And being in a big arena, there's lots of intensity, but nobody minds that. So why don't you like intensity?
I like intensity. I don't even know why I say I don't like it, because actually I do. I like the intensity of sports, and now that I bring it out and I'm kind of present to it, I like the experience of being intense. And there's a lot of intensity in me that maybe I shy away from, but when I'm present to it, it's like, yeah, I like that. There's a certain aliveness to it.
So is there an idea that you have that fear is bad? Because you're saying that fear isn't, huh?
I think there must be.
Well, but I mean, aren't we conditioned to think fear is bad and pain is bad?
Yeah, I think it's a knee-jerk reaction to it. Yeah, it's a condition. It's a habit.
Okay, but what you got to do now, though, is because you've been kind of working with this fear thing for a while, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you see, but it can become a huge distraction because it's just something that's arising and falling away. And if you turn it into the gym project, you see, you're gonna be in that mode of seeking that there's something wrong when there's actually not. Because I know you've had enough experience that you know who you are beyond the fear.
Right. That's
right?
true. Yep.
You see, so if you keep taking the bait, you're going to keep yourself very, very busy, and you're going to miss out what's going on. And you don't need courage, because who you are is not afraid.
All right.
When people say that you need courage, it makes sense, and we can all get behind that. But it's kind of leading someone to a place that they need something, and you don't need anything.
What you're saying is very core.
Yeah.
Yeah, very core.
So next time you feel fear, just remember, false evidence appearing real. It's just a sensation you're experiencing. And yes, it can be intense, but you already decided you like intensity.
Yes.
And so just recognize, at one point I recognized that pain was something I wanted to avoid, like physical pain. I was at this clinic, and, I just didn't want to have my neck jerked around anymore. And so I would have pain. And then I realized that every time I would go in for an adjustment, it's like I was already afraid of the pain. And it would only last for a second, and I was always feeling great afterwards. So I just decided I wasn't going to be intimidated by pain anymore. And I would just, when it was getting ready for the next, adjustment, I'm like, pain is good, pain is good, pain is good, pain is good. And I just took my attention off the thought that pain was bad. And it was like fantastic. And it didn't even hurt. And when it did again, it was fine, because it didn't have to be good or bad. It just was what was happening, and I was choosing to be there. So it's the same thing with fear.
Yeah.
Fear is like the core of ego, man. If you keep going in there trying to fix it, you're going to be trapped.
Yeah.
So that's a good practice to do. False evidence appearing real. Just put your attention on the yes and take your attention off the fear.
Yes, thank you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let me know how it goes.
Okay.
Okay, Claire. Claire didn't let any fear hold her back from last webinar. Oops, you're on mute. There you go. I can't hear her. Can you guys? Claire, we can't hear you.
No, okay.
Oh, there you are. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I had my speakers plugged in, and that you can never hear me that way.
Okay.
I wanted to see how that related to last webinar, where I'm moving from impulse to response, which is bypassing the ego, which says you can't do this, or, you got to prove yourself or whatever, all these little thoughts in the way. So, I mean, I'm constantly thinking up all kinds of things I should be doing because the world is in a terrible state and it needs all these actions, actions on climate, actions on refugees. And I'm like over the top with all these ideas, but I did go to a Hispanic center the other day and asked if they needed a volunteer. So I followed through on that one, and the high school never responded to me. And I am on the schedule on June 18th for a class for holistic practitioners on breathing. But it's like, it's slowly coming, but I'm kind of wondering, how does this relate? Because here it's like, don't do anything, just be.
Well, no, because, there's a difference in meditation. A lot of times people get this mixed up. Because the meditation instructions are just let everything be as it is, because you're just sitting there, you don't need to respond. But that gives you the training to have a different relationship to your mind. Okay, so now what you're doing is you're having all these impulses arising within you, and you're not saying no, you're saying yes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, but also, which is part of this, as you see all these things happening, you're only one person. Okay? So you can look at it this way. You don't have to say yes to every single impulse that arises. Your fundamental position is one of yes to life. And then you get all of these choices that, you're just be given all of these choices, but you can only do, let's say you have 30 choices coming up and you can only do 5. Then you don't kill yourself trying to do 30. Your fundamental position is yes to life. That's the most important thing. And then you do what you do, but you don't have to do everything.
I think the trick is also not to turn it into an identity of somebody who can do X, Y, and Z. Now I'm a good person because now I'm doing this volunteer job. Then
Exactly.
I try to personalize it and narrow it all down.
Okay, well, it's good. It's good to see that, though, right? Because you want to do it for the sake of doing it. If you turn it into like an egoic thing, then it's just the same as doing something nasty from one perspective.
Right. Thank you.
So anyway, it's great. It was very inspiring to get your emails after the last webinar.
Thank you so much. I was so amazed that you could respond to these, personal emails. I really appreciated it so much.
Well, sometimes, I feel like that's what I do. And I love it because, people are responding. It's important to respond back, and, we want to support each other in giving ourselves to the big yes.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, really cool. Thank you for coming on again.
Yes.
Okay, so you guys, I think we're at time. It's 3 minutes past, so I'd like to try to keep on schedule so we can have the end of the webinar moment together. So for all of you that are on the webinar for the first time, what we do is we just open up, everybody opens up. Oh, but Laura has to do her announcements first. And then after that, we open up and everybody who wants to can turn on their cameras if you don't have it on. And then it's a very interesting thing that happens. Nobody wants to leave. Everybody's just in love with each other, even though we don't know each other. So let's see what happens this time. So Laura, you're on.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention to everyone that Cynthia has a women's retreat, a public women's retreat coming up on the 25th to the 30th of May here at the beautiful Quinta de Miserela in Portugal. I will send details of this and other retreats and events that are coming up in an email to you over the next couple of days. There's a lot going on, in fact, in Portugal to do with the Awaken Life project. So you can check out the events page and I'll send you the link. We also have a bustling Facebook page. If you use Facebook, you can just look up the Awaken Life project Facebook page and like that to get news and updates. And I will send the recording to you tomorrow or in the next couple of days, and also ways you can donate for the webinar if you wish to do so. That's it.
Button, everybody's going to be unmuted. Do you know how to do that, Laura? You do, right?
I can unmute everybody, I think. Unmute. There you go.
Okay. Oh, some people are still muted.
Maybe they pressed unmute at the same time, probably.
Okay. Cool.
Feedback, but
Why are we having that feedback?
I don't know, because we're not in the same room like normal.
I know. We're like technical idiots, in case you guys didn't know.
Confidence that I'm here to do the technical stuff.
Well, I shouldn't say that because you're actually better than I am. Anyway, it's very nice to be on tonight with everybody, and it's great to see so many people. So tell your friends, and we'll get more people on for next time. And yeah, come to Portugal and see us.
Mm.
We have a fantastic 10-day retreat coming up in August if you need a little bit more time. So the more the merrier. So everybody else can talk now.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye from Cinderella. Thank you.
Much love.
Buddy.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, I see. Sandra Ramos is Miserella, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, guys.
And everybody else.
Mm.
And everybody else.
Who is AN and HB?
I do
Don't
not
know who
know.
you are. Hello, I don't know who you are. All right. I'm just looking at empty couches somewhere. Okay, it's good to see you guys.
Yes.
Yeah, good to see you.
Hi, Candida.
This is my mom.